Secretary Felix Morka describes the ADC's position as a reflection of its duplicity and insensitivity. The statement says it is unacceptable for the ADC to politicize a solemn national moment. It stresses that Buhari, who served Nigeria as a soldier, military head of state, and two-term democratic president, deserves a dignified farewell, adding that his grieving family merited national empathy and support. The ADC had in the statement forwarded the state burial organized in honor of Buhari, describing it as a political spectacle. The lawmaker representing Oshu East Senatorial District in the National Assembly on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, Senator Francis Fadausi, has resigned his membership from the party. Senator Fadausi, in a letter addressed to the PDP party chairman in Ward 4 of the local government area of the state, attributed his resignation to what he described as irreparable, irreconcilable differences and protracted legal battles that had bedeviled the party at the national level after the 2023 general election. The lawmaker, who is also the chairman of the Senate Committee on Industry, said his decision to resign was taken after due consultations with his family and political associates. Similarly, the senator representing Oshu Central Senatorial District in the National Assembly, Senator Olubi Fadeyi Ajagunla, has resigned from the People's Democratic Party, PDP. The chairman of Kwampan local government area of Plateau State, Mr. Christopher Manship, has charged to the new paramount traditional ruler of Longwa of War, Chieftain Misham Yahaya Kwande, to work for the unity of the people. Mr. Manship, while addressing journalists in Jos, described the new traditional ruler as a man of unity who meant well for the people and expressed the belief that his reign will impact positively on his people, the state, and the nation at large. He appreciated Governor Caleb Muftrang for ensuring the emergence of the new Longwa, who he said was an indication of his commitment to meeting the needs of the people at the grassroots and for contributing towards ensuring that sustainable peace is maintained in the area.
Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
Thank God, finally, network don't play pick up. Finally, wait till they solve my brother. Don't they boss your while I said tomorrow, no day, no response. But gonna make you no vessel. Now, network for my area don't close scatter. Some area boys can vandalize the telecom mast. Wait till here. Then try out for my area too, but our people no agree. Now, so we take some vigilante. Now, they don't dig that mast like say na oye way. That one a smart move. I go tell my neighbor make the table this matter for our CDA meeting. Now, so it's supposed to be. Once them break mast or cut fiber cable, everywhere go just jam like the same traffic for road. School go dull, hospital go slow, even bank na the whole economy na the connect slab. Vandalizing telecom infrastructure dey affect everybody. If your eye jam anything wey no pure, make you dial 622 from any network or send mail go protect@ncc.gov.ng. This message na from mobile network operators and tower companies with full backing plus support from the Nigerian Communications Commission.
On Eagle Square this Monday, a renowned trainer and doyen of the mass communication profession in Africa, Professor Emeritus Raf Akinfelili, will be our guest to discuss with Kayode Oyebisi on media development in Nigeria. How well have our traditional and social media performed in this era of fake news, hate speech, artificial intelligence, and the press freedom?
There are too many things that AI cannot do. AI cannot go to the news. AI cannot go and do advocacy or read the news without making sure that we know that it's going to human being. And so we have to guard against the misuse of AI.
Join the conversation at 7:30 this Monday evening on Radio Nigeria Network Service for your public accountability program, Eagle Square, where only the truth is good enough.
Nigeria, as a critical nation on the African continent, has a robust postal sector with the Nigerian Postal Service NIPOST at the forestage. So, get to know the latest developments in NIPOST and the nation's postal sector on the Radio Nigeria Network program, The Post Office, proudly brought to you by the Nigerian Postal Service NIPOST. The Post Office magazine program Comes Up every Monday at 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. will feature interviews, news and spotlight on the operations of various departments and ventures of the Nigerian Postal Service, NIPOST. Don't forget to join the magazine program, The Post Office, on the network service of Radio Nigeria every Monday from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. The Post Office is proudly brought to you by the Nigerian Postal Service, NIPOST. NIPOST, Service Excellence.
Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
Thanks for staying with us. As we mentioned earlier, callers in Radio Link, Radio Nigeria Audience Participatory Program have called for enlightenment for Nigerian youth on population control and fertility issues to enable them plan their lives better for national growth. A caller, Mr. Stephen Ayomide from Ibadan, your state, said the youth should be empowered, especially in the area of agriculture.
Youth is now being educated. Look at the rural area. Rural areas are supposed to be full with the youth. If government can make sure of them, they can occupy the space. There is that left to Nigeria government and the people. And government itself to go back to the drawing board so that Nigeria can be better.
Another caller, Mr. Fidel Oyeneke from Ibadan State, spoke about the importance of family planning, saying the impact of the knowledge about family planning can help in the control of population.
There is need for us to have adequate health count, that is census, to determine the population of this country and know the number of youth that we have. There is need to introduce sex education, but from primary to tertiary institutions, since most of our youth are just in the productive stage are the younger ones. Tell them what to do and what not to do, the number of children to have, child fulfill, and so on and so forth.
Two callers into the program, Mr. Chinonso Onya from Bida and Mr. Samuel from Abuja, have also called on the National Population Commission to work towards achieving accurate and reliable head count for the country.
I want to urge the National Population Commission to work in collaboration with our primary health care situated in every ward of our local government. Yes, National Population Commission will have their health officers situated in each of these primary health centers. There are many ways that we can get accurate population. So it's going for additional centers and all that. To me, it's a way of reporting.
On his part, Emmanuel Aiton from Maitama, Abuja, urged stakeholders to deliberately tap into the talents of Nigerian youth in sports and other areas as part of empowerment. Participants at a public hearing organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Constitution Review for Imo and Abia states have renewed the call for more women inclusion in governance and the creation of additional states and local government areas in the southeast geopolitical zone of the country to address imbalance in the structure. At the event in Owerri, the governor of Imo State, Chief Hope Uzodinma, said the further alteration of the constitution will help deepen democracy and ensure equitable representation of the people in critical national institutions. Chinazo Ilechukwu reports that there are presentations from the Organized Labor Pan-Igbo Social-Cultural Organization, Igbo worldwide, and the civil society groups advocating more women inclusion in governance.
Governor Hope Uzodinma said time had come for the people to contribute meaningfully towards the process of building a new constitution that would equitably serve the interests of every Nigerian. He challenged members of the National Assembly to ensure fairness in the process and added that the people of the Southeast expected them to address imbalance, entrench rotational presidency, address the issue of indigenship and decentralization of the police force to boost the fight against insecurity.
The Southeast is the only region with only 5 states in Nigeria. Every other zone has 6 or more. This imbalance has led to under-representation from the National Assembly at the Federal Executive Council, and this has shrunk our voice and has breathed our inclusivity into national events. Therefore, it is only fair and just that we ask for the creation of at least 2 additional states in the Southeast.
The governor of Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti, in a message called for caution in the creation of additional states, noting that the measure would promote duplication of work and further add pressure to the lean resources of the country. The representative of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Uche Chigemezu, threw the weight of the organized labor on the submissions of Governor Uzodinma, but rejected the call for the removal of minimum wage and industrial unions from exclusive list.
If labor is neglected, some government can easily institutionalize abuse of workers' fundamental rights, which may lead to continued industrial disharmony within the state.
The legal advisor of the Honest Indigo worldwide, Chief Chizoba Iheka, called for a legislation to ensure equal distribution of infrastructure and federal appointments across the geopolitical zones, while Mr. Charles Okere of the National Union of Local Government Employees, Norgen, Imo State Chapter, advocated the removal of funding of primary schools from the third tier of government to save the education system from collapse. The Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives, and Chairman, House Committee on Constitutional Review, Chief Benjamin Kalu, said the National Assembly was committed to ensuring a document that will guarantee credible elections, judicial independence, inclusive governance, and local government reforms, among others.
So let us rise above division. Let us rise above sentiment. Embrace our shared destiny. Build a Nigeria where justice, where equity, progress, not just ideas, but everyday realities.
Chief Kalu commended the federal government for its commitment to constitutional renewal, strengthening of institutions, and inclusive growth, adding that the legislature would collaborate with the executive to deliver a constitution that will serve Nigerians. In Owerri, Chinazo Ibichukwu, Radio Nigeria.
Also, a renewed call for the creation of additional states and reservation of legislative seats for women, provision of constitutional backing for traditional rulers, and the state police in the southeast has dominated the ongoing constitutional review in Enugu State. Reacting to the submissions on reserved seats for women, a women rights activist and executive director, Women Information Network, Mrs. Miriam Menkiti, said the proposed law, when passed into law, will give women voice to be heard and be able to participate actively in the nation's decision-making process.
I'll appeal to the National Assembly, that's the Senate and the House of Reps, to consider the reserved seat bills. Enugu State government says it's in support of it, and so many other state governments are in support of it. And I think it is also time to give women a space on the table so that they'll be visible. We are more than half of the nation's population. We need to be recognized.
On the purpose of the review process, the chairman of the committee, Mr. Okeze Kalu, said the constitutional review became necessary due to the shortfalls observed in the nation's constitution, which had been amended 5 times, but yet to meet the widely desired goals.
This public hearing presents another opportunity for all of us, for the Nigerian public and all important stakeholders to air their view and make meaningful contributions.
In an interview with Radio Nigeria, the member representing Equal A's South Federal Constituency, Ebonyi State at the House of Representatives, Mr. Chinedu Oka, said the outcome of the review will lead to creation of additional states according to the wishes of the people. Meanwhile, demands for fiscal federalism, resource control, devolution of powers to federating units, increased derivation formula, state police, and creation of local government areas by states were some of the issues canvassed by government representatives from Bayelsa, Delta, Edo states, as well as ethnic nationalities, traditional rulers, and pressure women and youth groups in Yenagua. Alabo Batare now reports.
Leader of the House of Representatives and chairman of the House Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution as amended, South Center A, Professor Julius Ihonwere, said the purpose of the public hearing was to aggregate the views of stakeholders in the region and document the presentations to the 10th Assembly of the Green Chamber for the constitutional review process.
We rest assured that every document submitted to this committee will be very carefully reviewed, considered, and presented to the full committee in Abuja before it goes to the floor of the House. It is how to make Nigeria better, more democratic.
Governor Doidiri of Bayelsa State advocated that the constitutional review process should create opportunities to address the injustices suffered by the people of the Niger Delta, the inequitable distribution of resources, the need for fiscal federalism, and for states to be saddled with the responsibility of creating local government areas they can cater for.
All the states in the South, we all suffer the same thing. Justice we are asking for from the federal government and from the oil companies. We are talking about a proper federation where resource allocation will be based on resources controlled by the people and pay tax to the federal government.
Governor Sheriff Oboriwori of Delta State, represented by the Deputy Governor Sir Monday Oyemi, made a case for local government autonomy, upward review of the derivation principle, and revenue allocation formula for states to control their resources.
As a major oil producing state and a vital contributor contributor to national economy. Delta State strongly advocates a true fiscal federalism.
For the Edo State position articulated by the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Dr. Samson Osagi, on behalf of Governor Monday Okpehulu, the state backed legislative, judicial and electoral reforms with electronic transmission of election results, the creation of state police, but was against carving any part of the state for the formation of another state, a proposal which attracted protest from the Joint National Congress.
Edo State is fully in support of the review of the Constitution of Nigeria as amended to cater for the many flaws inherent therein and therefore fill the gaps needed to make it a truly federal constitution.
The public hearing, which featured other officials of the government of the three states, monarchs, socio-political and ethnic groups, women and youth bodies and other interest groups presenting position papers for the proposed amendments of the 1999 Constitution, saw a mammoth crowd in attendance, which gave challenges to security agencies to handle. In Yenegua, Alambo, Natoyin, Radio Nigeria.
Now to a political stirring. A chairmanship aspirant for the Abuja Municipal Area Council on the platform of the All Progressives Congress APC, Mr. Al-Hassan Haske, has taken legal action against the National Working Committee of the party over what he alleged a flawed primary election. Addressing journalists in Abuja, Malam Al-Hassan complained that the primary election was a hatchet job done against the will of the majority of the APC loyalists in the FCT. He said that the legal action was to restore legitimacy, confidence in internal democracy and the conduct of party affairs, having written petitions without response.
The hope of a common man like me, which is judiciary. I have a true faith and confidence that we have some Nigerian in the judiciary that will redress the matter without fear or favor. Justice, freedom and equity we are all demanding. No to domination. The original supporters of the party must be considered and carried along.
Malam Al-Hassan Haske alleged that the process that handed the AMAC chairmanship ticket to a person who did not satisfy the constitution provisions for joining the party a few weeks before the primaries was unacceptable.
It is categorically open in the constitution of the party that a member, before he contests for any position, should be in the party for 3 months, or a waiver should be given to him by the National Working Committee. It is known to everybody in this FCT that the declared winner did not stay in the party up to 1 month when the primary election was conducted.
The AMAC chairmanship aspirant therefore urged President Bola Tinubu to intervene in what he described as actions capable of undermining the success of the APC in 2027. African time in local parlance is a term used to refer to lateness to events or in their commencement. The concept, as worrisome as it is, seems to have been accepted as a norm in Africa and notably in the Nigerian society. In this special report, Ive Gulu examines the phenomenon of African time and its impact on socio-economic life.
Time is one of the most important resources in life, but once lost may not be regained. A popular saying, "Time waits for no one," refers to its fleeting nature. However, the daily lives of Nigerians seem to suggest the opposite, as people act in a manner that suggests there is always time. It has since become a norm for people to show up late at functions or important appointments, even when their roles are critical to the success. Sadly, event planners are also caught up in the web as they often delay commencement. In other climes, lateness by a minute or two may not be tolerated, and violators risk being shut out, called out, or made to apologize. In Nigeria, however, people show up late at events, or such events get delayed, and no one is held accountable. What do people think about African time?
The concept of African time has affected so many of us in our work. It has cost me a lot.
This thing about African time is not making any sense, because if I say meet me by this time, you're supposed to come and meet me by this time, so that I'll be able to do what I want to do ahead of time.
The National Orientation Agency, NOA, is the body saddled with the mandate of educating Nigerians on the right values and standards of behavior. What has it done to check the menace of African time, which often serves as a dent on the country's image? Kaneng Horo is the NOA director in Plateau State.
Edo
don't know why this African time concept has continued to grow amongst us in spite of the several preachings of the conscientization to Nigerians that we do as an agency.
Sadly, government agencies and functionaries are often guilty of this practice as events do get delayed due to their late arrival. Journalists on their part have often grumbled at how long they have to wait for events to commence, which impedes the delivery of their news content. A journalist, Omotayo Adetunji, said she missed her deadline to late commencement of an event.
By the time they start, you're tired already. And a story that's supposed to go on air that day, it fails to go on air, and it becomes a stale story.
People wake up every day with schedules and plans to execute, but are trapped at functions that start late. According to a public affairs analyst, Victor Kuchili, African time has socio-economic implications as it leads to loss of productive hours.
We have created that misconception that the sign of a big man is to come late, and it's counterproductive. That has retarded our capacity to achieve our potential as a country.
The question to ask is, can Africa, or Nigeria in particular, be a member of the global community and operate on a different time format? In Jos, Ivegulu, Radio Nigeria.
The time now is 22 minutes past 7. You're listening to the News Order Network service of Radio Nigeria. In the headlines, stakeholders call for youth enlightenment on fertility issues. Demands for women inclusion and governance heightened in Southeast public hearing on constitution review. Still to come, EFCC seeks collaboration against abuse of the Naira. Nigerian Army warns adoption of technological innovation in tackling warfare. Plus, sports, the commentary, Cyberscope, newsroom headlines and weather report. Please stay tuned.
Imagine a day without communication, no calls to loved ones, no internet to connect us, no way to reach help in emergencies. This could be our reality if we allow the vandalization of telecoms infrastructure to continue. Every time a telecoms mast or fiber cable is vandalized, it disrupts the lives of millions of Nigerians and endangers everyone. It is not just metal and cables being destroyed. It is our future, our safety, our connection to the world. Standing against vandalization, keep Nigeria connected and safeguard our nation's progress. Dial 622 from any network or send an email to protect@ncc.gov.ng to report suspicious activities around telecommunications infrastructure. This message is brought to you by the Mobile Network Operators and Telcos in collaboration with the Nigerian Communications Commission.
Many believe life as we know it has changed irrevocably, and that in this seismic shift lies an opportunity to turn things around, improve our country, and make life better for the majority. It is time to reboot Nigeria. Daria Media, with the support of the MacArthur Foundation, presents Pivotal. Join Nabila Usman as she discusses with policymakers, civil society, industry players, and individual Nigerians implementing unconventional ideas that have the power to change our country for the better. Catch Pivotal Mondays 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
Thanks for staying tuned. The Executive Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Mr. Ola Olukoyede, has called on critical stakeholders in the anti-graft war to join hands with the Commission in tackling the menace of Naira abuse in the country. Mr. Olukoyede, who made the appeal during an engagement with critical stakeholders in Lagos, said the sensitization program organized by the Lagos Zonal Directorate 1 of the Command was to address the increasing state of Naira mutilation and abuse in the country. He described the Naira as not just a means of exchange, but a profound symbol of national sovereignty and pride. Mr. Olukoyede also described the rampant abuse of the naira at social functions through practices such as spraying, stamping, and mutilation, and maintained that over the past years, the command in collaboration with the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) had intensified enforcement and public awareness campaigns to combat naira abuse through the establishment of a task force on dollarization and naira abuse, as well as the prosecution of offenders, including public figures and celebrities. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has called on senior military commanders to prioritize troop welfare and adopt technological innovation as central strategies in confronting the changing landscape of modern warfare. Lieutenant General Oluyede made the call during the closing ceremony of the Nigerian Army Senior Command Leadership Seminar held in Apapa, Lagos. Mary Fatile has details.
The week-long seminar brought together top army officers and key defense stakeholders to deliberate on critical themes including digital transformation, joint operations coordination, media engagement, and innovation in military operations. A major highlight of the discussions was the urgent need to foster accountability and transparency in military leadership. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, represented by the Commander of the Nigerian Army Ordnance Corps, Major General Henry Wesley, stressed that soldiers must be placed at the center of decision-making through the adoption of the Soldier at Risk framework.
The objective of the seminar was to equip senior commanders with the requisite skills and competencies to enhance their performance in an ever-increasing complex security environment.
The Army Chief emphasized sustained investment in soldiers' physical, mental, and emotional well-being, including access to quality health care, mental health services, and family support programs. He described the Soldier at Risk concept not just as a theoretical framework, but as a moral and operational imperative essential for strengthening the military's human capital.
Let us remember that the heart of military effectiveness lies in the morale and motivation to move forward. It is imperative that we continue to invest in initiatives as well as activities that enhance physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
General Oluyede urged commanders to take the lessons from the seminar back to their units, stressing that the future of the Army depends on their collective commitment. In line with the Nigerian Army's 2025 training vision, participants also examined the need to modernize training methods with adaptive tech-driven strategies designed to enhance operational readiness in a rapid evolving security environment. From Lagos, Mary Fatile, Radio Nigeria.
One thing that most people dread is old age in view of the many challenges that comes with it. But the fact remains that aging is inevitable. In view of the United Nations 2019 report, which projects that the number of older people will triple by 2050 globally, there is the need to scale up measures as well as awareness on how the elderly can live well and healthy. Anthony Akaji, who spoke with stakeholders of some Nigerians, tells us more.
When I was young, I used to do house cleaning, but now when I'm old, I feel tired to be doing that thing as before.
When I was young, if I get a cook, I will make sure I finish reading it before the next morning. But now I cannot do that again.
I used to be a very good basketballer, but I really can jump. And even when I jump, my fear of breaking my bones, especially my knees.
Voices of Mrs. Olushola Ojewale, Chief Moshood Bamitale, and Mr. Olaika Ajumale on things they enjoyed doing but could no longer do due to aging. Different strokes for different folks. A deputy director of nursing at the University College Hospital Ibadan, Mrs. Grace Adekoya, says she was still active as she was when she joined the hospital as a staffer and at home.
Few of my colleagues that we came in 1992, then they were calling us to work force. Till now, we are still at the forefront of activities.
Aging, according to Wikipedia, involves changes in human being over time, which cuts across the physical, psychological, and social aspects. Records show that out of estimated 150,000 people who die daily across the globe, 2/3 die from age-related causes, lifestyle choices, and socio-economic conditions. It is pertinent, therefore, to give adequate attention to the health of senior citizens. Giving its recipe for aging and wellness, Secretary, Nigeria Union of Pensioners, Oyo State, Dr. Olusegun Abaton, described aging as grace if one did what is expected. Dr. Abatum urged senior citizens to take life easy and not allow the social, political, and economic situation in the country to weigh them down.
If you start worrying your life that your children are granted, you lose your life and they will continue. So that is another problem with us.
Similarly, a geriatric social worker and executive director, Center on Aging Development and Rights in Ibadan, Mr. Olayinka Ajowale, cautioned young and those in their middle ages from engaging in activities that could adversely affect their lives when they become old, such as smoking, excessive alcohol intake, eating lots of salty and sugary food.
This is a period that most people retire from active service, and they just retire and they go sedentary, and when go sedentary, it has a lot of effect on all levels of body.
Harping on contentment as prime key to happiness and life, a public affairs analyst based in the US, Mr. Olatunde Adelakun, urged people in this category to be grateful for what they have, irrespective of their circumstances.
Contentment at 50 and above, wherever you find yourself in life, and to God that you are still alive.
Consultant geriatric psychiatrist, University of Ibadan, Dr. Olufisayo Ilubadebo, counseled older adults to take care of cardiovascular risk factors like diabetes and hypertension, while paying closer attention to their vital signs as such would go a long way at helping them to live well.
After taking care of health to that medical condition, so socially engaging, making sure that you're not just sitting down at home idle.
Other respondents in Ibadan want government to see to the welfare of pensioners by ensuring prompt payment of their allowances and upgrade of their pension and gratuity to make them to live longer and happier. In Ibadan, Antonia Akonji, Radio Nigeria.
Next is State House Diary.
Welcome to another edition of State House Diary as we review last week's activities at the Presidential Villa, the seat of government. I am Olido Mbiwe.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
Those were the famous words of the late former President Muhammadu Buhari, whose death was announced last Sunday by his successor, President Bola Tinubu. President Buhari, who died in London following a prolonged illness, was laid to rest on Tuesday in his hometown, Daura, Katsina State. Former President Buhari, who was born on December 17, 1942, died at the age of 82. He was a military officer and politician who served as Nigeria's military leader in 1983 for 2 years, which were best remembered for the war against indiscipline. The former president later served as the democratically elected president of Nigeria for 2 terms in 2015 and 2019. On the day of his passing, President Bola Tinubu ordered the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, to proceed to the United Kingdom to accompany President Muhammadu Buhari's body back to Nigeria. President Tinubu also ordered flags at half-staff as a mark of respect for the departed leader. Earlier that day, President Tinubu celebrated the global literary icon, Professor Wole Soyinka, at 91. He also mourned the death of the Awujale of Ijebuland, Oba Sikiru Adetono, which he described as double pain in his heart as it coincided with the passing of his predecessor. As part of preparations, President Tinubu approved the constitution of an interministerial committee for the state funeral of former President Muhammadu Buhari. The committee, chaired by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, had the responsibility of planning and coordinating a befitting state burial. While in London, Vice President Kashim Shettima condoled with the late former president's family, including his nephew, Malam Mamin Daura. He described former President Buhari as a mentor. Vice President Shettima also accompanied the body of the former leader and his family to Katsina State, where President Tinubu received them. After the state funeral, which was well attended by dignitaries from all walks of life, Vice President Shettima led President Tinubu's delegation for the Fidal prayers held in honor of the late statesman. The Vice President extolled the virtues of the former president and described him as a man whose impact cut across borders.
It wasn't enough for the family of the late president. It wasn't enough for the people of the world and the people of the State. It was a major loss for the nation out of the African continent. People from ground and land and all. The police with Kennedy Bella and over the sidelines of our English system.
Vice President Shettima, among other dignitaries, prayed for the repose of his soul. Last Thursday, President Bola Tinubu led the Federal Executive Council in a solemn tribute to the late President Muhammadu Buhari at a special session at the council meeting held in honor of the departed leader at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. President Tinubu renamed the University of Maiduguri after the former leader. According to the President, former President Buhari's leadership qualities and integrity endeared him to many, from his chosen career as a military man to the administrative and political positions he held, culminating in his headship of the country in uniform and as a Democrat.
Most remarkably, he retained his jovial spirit. When his tenure ended, he returned to Dara, not to command from the shadows or to hold court, but to live as he always had, never seeking to impose his will, but content to let others carry the nation forward. President Buhari was not a perfect man. No leader is, but he was, in every sense of the word, a good man, a decent man, an honorable man. His record will be debated as all legacies are, but the character he brought to public life, the moral force he carried, the incorruptible standard he presented will not be forgotten. This was a life lived in full service to Nigeria and in fidelity to God. Now he rests, and we who remain must carry the memory of life as a standard to guide us. Let us honor him, not only with words, but with humility in power, discipline in service, compassion in governance, and fearlessness in the pursuit of justice.
The son of the late former President, Yusuf Buhari, expressed the family's gratitude to Nigerians, including members of the diplomatic community, for the honor bestowed on his father in death.
Your visits, calls, and prayers symbolized a great honor to the memory of our late father, and we're sincerely grateful for all the support and solidarity extended to the family. May Allah continue to bless us all.
Also within the past week, President Bola Tinubu on Friday visited the Dantata family in Kano. He described the late philanthropist Alhaji Aminu Al-Hassan Dantata as a very humble man.
He is a man of immense personality, honesty, integrity, and philanthropy, commitment to humanity in every aspect of the way. If they do friendship and they do contact over and beyond in the other world, Alhaji Dantata will be in the marketplace distributing food to the hungry and giving the sick the happiness and the needs that they want. Generous, so good, so committed to great value of our country. Missing very, very close to my family, and I came here, sought his prayer before the election. He gave me that prayer, and I promised I would see him back. But instead of me coming, he was the one who came to Abuja. Simplicity, humility,
Ms. Rosswood.
Also within the week under review, the federal government clarified that it had not received any official communication from the government of the United Arab Emirates, UAE, regarding any revised visa policy affecting Nigerian citizens. The clarification followed concerns arising from recent developments in the visa issuance protocols of both the United States of America and the UAE, particularly with Nigerian applicants. Speaking on the matter, the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, restated the federal government's commitment to preserving and deepening Nigeria's long-standing diplomatic relations with both countries. He added that relevant Nigerian ministries, departments and agencies were actively engaging to ensure that the concerns raised are addressed through appropriate and constructive channels. That's a package on this week's edition of State House Diary.
Join us for a fresh edition, same time next Sunday. I am Oledo Mbiwe.
And now to sports. Closing ceremony of the Confederation of African Athletics Under-18 and 20 Championship holds today in Abeokuta as Ukraine's Alexander Usyk knocks out Britain's Daniel Dubois to become undisputed world heavyweight boxing champion. Let's join Christy Dashi and Alambo Datoye for these and more in our sports package.
The Super Falcons of Nigeria will reunite rivalry with the Banyana of South Africa in the semi-final showdown at the 2024 Women Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON in Morocco. Yesterday, South Africa beat Senegal 4-1 on penalties after full and extra time ended 0-0 in the last quarter-final game at the tournament. On Friday, Nigeria delivered a statement performance, thrashing Zambia 5-0 to secure their place in the semi-final. Media officer of the Nigeria Women Football League NWFL, Sam Amedu, says the Super Falcons must keep up the fighting spirit to secure a final ticket.
It's a very huge opportunity for the Super Falcons to rise to the occasion, and not just rise to the occasion but also get counted and prove the stuff they are made of. The Madugu regime is already out. They've sent a very strong message with the win against Zambia, and this showdown against South Africa will definitely be another massive opportunity to make a mark for themselves with the way they will turn out.
The Falcons yesterday spent time in the gym in a recovery session with no training. In the other quarter-final encounter, Ghana set up a semi-final clash with host Morocco with a 3-2 defeat of Algeria on penalties after regulation and extra time ended goalless. Today is observed as official rest day as action resumes on Tuesday. From Casablanca in Morocco, I am Christy Dashi. Alambo Datoye has other sports stories making the rounds.
Thank you, Christy. The third edition of the Confederation of African Athletics CAA Combined Under-18 and Under-20 Championship comes to a climax today, with the closing ceremony due to take place at the MK Abiola Stadium in Abeokuta, Ogun State. Last night, Nigeria won the double in the 4x100 meters relay event. In the Under-20 women's 4x100 meters relay, the quartet of Lucy Nwankwo, Success Onibo, Anita Enaruna, and Chioma Nweke clocked a time of 45.58 seconds to clinch gold. South Africa settled for silver, while bronze went to Cote d'Ivoire. Nigeria also won gold in the Under-20 men's 4x100 meters event, with the quartet outsprinting Zimbabwe, who got silver, while Botswana took bronze. South Africa, however, won gold in the Under-18 boys medley relay in a time of 1 minute 3.52 seconds, beating Nigeria on anchor as they picked silver in 1 minute 55.55 seconds. Namibia won bronze. Team Nigeria's girls Under-18 medley relay clocked a time of 2 minutes 08.16 seconds to win gold, breaking the championship record set by the Nigerian quartet that won in Mauritius 2015. South Africa was second, while Botswana got bronze. Nigeria's Pristina Ochonogo took gold in the women's Under-20 long jump event, jumping to a championship record and season best of 6.71 meters, her third best jump ever, having leapt 6.7 meters at the National Olympic Trials in 2024. The Flying Eagles of Nigeria will take on Niger Republic today in the semi-finals of the West African Football Union WAFU Zone B Under-20 boys tournament in Pram, Ghana. The Nigerian Nigerian team top Group A with 4 points and plus 3 goals difference from 2 games, while Niger were runners-up in Group B. Nigeria and Niger played at this level last year, also in the semi-finals of the WAFU B Under-20 AFCON qualifiers in Lome, Togo, where the Flying Eagles won 3-1. The second semi-final will be between hosts Ghana, who finished runners-up in Group A with 4 points and plus 1 goal difference, against Group B winners and defending champions Cote d'Ivoire. Beyond limits of Nigeria have been made champions of the prestigious B17E category at the Gothia Cup 2025 in Sweden after beating ASEC Mimosas of Cote d'Ivoire 7-6 on penalty shootouts, with both sides battling to a 1-1 draw in regulation time in a keenly contested final. Emmanuel Ayowonula was named the most valuable player of the final in a tournament beyond limits, scored 28 goals while conceding just 10. Semi-final pairings in the European Women's Championship are now known. In the fixtures, England will clash with Italy on Tuesday night as Spain take on Germany on Wednesday night. In the quarterfinals, Italy beat Norway 2-1. England triumphed 3-2 on penalties over Sweden, following both sides battling to a 2-2 draw after extra time, while Spain spanked host Switzerland 2-0 as Germany overcame France 6-5 on penalty shootouts, with both sides playing 1-1 after extra time last night. In boxing, nearly 2 years after their first bout, Alexander Usyk has successfully defended his heavyweight title with a knockout of Daniel Dubois in the 5th round at Wembley Stadium in London to become the undisputed heavyweight world champion. Usyk dominated most of the bout and landed multiple heavy blows on Dubois in the 5th round, knocking down the London native twice, and Dubois stayed down the second time to finish a masterful performance by the 38-year-old Ukrainian superstar, who adds the International Boxing Federation crown to his World Boxing Association, World Boxing Organization, and World Boxing Council titles. I am Alambo Natoye.
And it's now time for the commentary, which is on celebrating diversity to overcome challenges associated with intertribal marriage. It is written by Clementina A.K. of our Treasure FM Port Harcourt.
Intertribal marriage is a legally or customarily recognized union between two individuals from distinct ethnic groups or tribes, characterized by the merging of different cultural, linguistic, and traditional backgrounds. Simply put, it is a union between individuals from different ethnic groups or tribes. For instance, in Nigeria, a Yoruba person marrying an Igbo person, or in Hausa legalizing his or her union with an Efik person or any other ethnic group. In a country like Nigeria, where ethnic diversity is often accompanied by deep-seated cultural and tribal tensions, a quiet revolution seems to be taking place in recent times. This means that intertribal marriages, once frowned upon or forbidden, is increasingly becoming accepted and celebrated. A recent survey indicates that the number of intertribal marriages in Nigeria has risen significantly over the past decade. This shift is attributed to increased urbanization, education, and exposure to different cultures. The growing trend is not limited to any regions. In the north, intertribal marriages between Hausa, Fulani, and other ethnic groups are also on the rise, which has resulted to some benefits. For instance, it has helped in breaking down cultural barriers and stereotypes. It has also helped to promote understanding and tolerance, enhance social cohesion, enrich family life, and promote national unity. Nonetheless, some families and communities have continued to resist intertribal marriages, citing cultural and traditional concerns. For a fact, Nigeria has over 250 ethnic groups, each with its own customs, traditions, and values. Integrating these differences can be challenging, especially when it comes to issues like child rearing, family expectations, and social norms. Language barriers is another challenge, with over 500 languages spoken in Nigeria. Communication is a significant hurdle, especially for couples who do not share a common language. Family resistance is yet another factor that can raise tension, conflict, or even stigmatization. Also, religious differences poses a great challenge in a multi-religious country like Nigeria.
This can lead to conflicts over issues of faith, worship, and child rearing. Other challenges include economic pressures, identity crisis, community acceptance, and legal complexities. Despite these challenges, a good number of intertribal couples in the country have found ways to navigate their differences to build strong and loving relationships. Love, they say, respects culture, but it is not bound by it. Strategically, these challenges can be managed through open dialogue, a situation whereby couples discuss cultural differences before marriage to align expectations like child rearing and festivals, which can go a long way. Celebrating diversity in ceremonies can equally be a powerful symbol of unity and acceptance. Counseling and support network tailored towards intertribal couples can help navigate cultural differences and set shared expectations. The media is not left out as showcasing successful intertribal couples in movies, programs, and social media can challenge negative narratives and inspire others. Lastly, the government and non-governmental organizations can support intertribal unions through inclusive policies and community-building initiatives that promote national unity.
That commentary on celebrating diversity to overcome challenges associated with intertribal marriage was written by Clementina Eke and read by Rachel Bwala. Next is Cyberscope, bringing you the trends shaping conversations across Nigeria's social media space. We begin in Edo State. Edo State Governor Monday Okpebolo lit up timelines after declaring that Peter Obi must seek his permission before visiting Edo. Speaking at a rally in Uromi, he warned that Obi's security won't be guaranteed if he shows up uninvited, and blamed him for an unauthorized Labour Party gathering in Benin that allegedly turned violent, leaving 3 people dead. X exploded as Obi's supporters called it a threat to democracy, while others backed the governor's call for order. Rights groups and Ohanaeze Ndigbo advocated restraint as political tensions simmer ahead of 2027. Well, let's hope that peace is maintained. In the U.S., tech CEO Andy Byron just lost his job over what is now dubbed the hug that ended a career. The head of software firm Astronomer was caught on a kiss cam snuggling with a female colleague while they're both reportedly married to other people. The clip went mega viral, prompting Byron to resign. His company quickly dropped a statement stressing its values. The moral: public cuddles can cost your career and indeed your job. So, that's what we hug in public. Social media lit up with emotion and farewell messages as news broke out of the sleeping prince passing after nearly 20 years in a coma. Saudi Arabian Prince Al-Walid bin Khalid bin Talal died at 36, and the digital world paused to mourn a life that had quietly stirred hearts for 2 decades. He was just 15 when a car crash in London left him in a coma. We pray that his soul rest in peace. Of course, tributes are flooding timelines across the Arab world. One post read, "Rest now, sleeping prince. You held on for 20 years. It is an emotional goodbye to a young man who, fought silent, remained present in the hearts of millions." And now back home here in Nigeria, Nollywood actress Dayo Amusa is clapping back after a content creator claimed she was HIV positive. The actress, who has long promoted HIV awareness and testing, called the rumor both dangerous and defamatory. Netizens are demanding accountability, with many saying health rumors like this indeed crosses the line. And so, as we all know, social media is a place where one gets shot many times and don't die easily. And that's all for now. Stay connected with at Radio Niger and join the conversation using hashtag Cyberscape for more updates. Cyberscape was compiled by Omolola Amin. Next is newspaper headlines as we begin with this day. FG states LG's revenue receives a boost as FAC shares highest allocation of 1.818 trillion in June. EFCC paid in 18 sitting governors awaiting expiration of their tenures, says Chairman Olukoyede, and so reports this day. The Vanguard tells us resolves Southeast marginalization with Adada state creation. Uwodu urges Reps Committee. Crossover, Rivers demands state police, LG autonomy, state creation, full reports in the Vanguard. The Guardian has these. EFCC raids Yahoo Academy in Abia, arrests 23. Nigeria targets $50 billion in hydrogen exports. That's the Guardian as well. The Daily Trust says Plateau demands withdrawal of soldiers at flashpoint, says police will do better. Senator Natasha vows to resume plenary Tuesday. Stop dancing on Buhari's grave for relevance. Presidency hits ADC. You may read up this in the Daily Trust newspaper. In the Sun, we take these. Customs warn against wildlife trafficking, intercepts 530 kilograms of pangolin scales. Vice Chancellor warns researchers to stop AI content. And Enugu government announces Christian Chukwu's burial. Details in the Sun newspaper. Don't forget, let's check the relevant papers mentioned. And that's it on newspaper headlines as compiled by Patrick Alumana Jr. And for weather report, thunderstorms with rains are anticipated during the early morning hours over parts of Taraba, Adamawa, Kebbi, Borno, Bauchi and Sokoto, as well as Kaduna states, while thunderstorms with rains are anticipated over parts of Plateau, Nasarawa and the Federal Capital Territory, Kogi, Benue and Niger states in the afternoon and evening hours. Light rains are expected over parts of Imo, Abia, Bayelsa, Rivers, Cross River and Akwa Ibom states during the afternoon and evening hours. So to end the news, here's a recap of the main points. Stakeholders and population